Good evening, friends, and welcome. Golly, what a great evening. It was 75 or so here in the greater Austin area. I see that Scott and Patty had the same in Northeast and Texas and Dallas. So let's say hi. Scott Hummer was the first one here. Patty is second. And then we've got Scott Hummer, Tammy Harder. Hello, welcome. Utah Mike, and Little Lone Prepper. So good evening to all of you. I've got 7 I see here right now. I only see a couple of you in the chat, but wow. So I'm so happy that we switched this from Monday nights to Wednesday nights. Not because of the new ham net that they operate on Monday nights. I've only done it a couple times. Trying to support other new hams, but I was talking to another guy down in Manor, and he's got a friend in Austin. Whoa, what happened here? Just a minute. Video pad all of a sudden opened up, and I don't want video pad opened up. There we go. So anyhow, he's down in Manor, and I was telling him about our Monday night new ham thing that so he can get her involved. But I had my procedure Monday morning, so I've got an implant right now in right between my stomach and my esophagus. I had this contraption that was measuring pH levels and all this other kinds of stuff, and so I finally got to get rid of that this morning. So you don't have to watch me with that. Which was crazy. Every time I coughed, I had to push a button. I felt like I was typing on my chest. But hopefully we'll find a reason why I'm coughing and get that resolved. It's only been a year now. So, last chapter of the Ultimate Prepper Pantry Survival Guide. This is a must-have book in your library. I am really happy that we have used it for the last 9 weeks. I think it's a fantastic book. Ficgtion, good evening, welcome. And I just think it's a great addition to your library. It's got a whole bunch of different things. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit more about the sociological, psychological things that happen in a post-apocalyptic world. I did want to show you, and I've got it covered with my notepad. No, that's tomorrow night. No, that's all tomorrow night. It's down here. This is the book that we'll be starting next week. So if you want to buy a copy of it, the link to Amazon is down in the description. And beware, I do get 2 cents on every dollar that you spend on it. Doesn't raise the price, just helps support the channel. Just bought a new camera so that we can improve our overall YouTube capability here in the near future. And we'll see how that goes. So let me see. KP Heathen has joined us. Sumi has joined us. Tomorrow night, we're going to be talking about some of the fear-mongering that goes on in this book. And part of that fear-mongering is nuclear winter. And so Sumi and I have been talking a lot about how are we going to we'll probably need to have greenhouses with some sort of grow lights inside of them. And so if the sun is being blocked by all this whatever, smoke and everything else for 10 years, and it's not going to get down to only 20% of it's going to get down to the earth, then we're going to have to do something to grow plants and keep animals alive. So large greenhouses may be the thing. We won't be able to use solar power, so probably have to use something like pedal power. We've kind of been talking about this, wind power, some sort of other form of power generation other than solar. So hopefully we'll show you some solutions tomorrow night. So KP Heathen, good evening. So chapter 9, adapting to change and navigating shifting scenarios for a 90-day scenario. So you're going to have to become rather resourceful. There was a really fantastic video that Stephen Smith put out, and he's the author of the Stonemont series. We just did his book 7, I believe, last month or month before last for Ficgtion, on on wings like eagles. But anyhow, maybe 2 years ago, he put out one of the best videos I've ever seen discussing the differences between scrounging, scavenging, and stealing. And I've lost my notes on it. I've got to email him and find out what that was. But that's basically what we're talking about here. Is you're going to have to be resourceful as a prepper, because a lot of the things you're going to need are not going to be there. You're not going to have ready access to them. You won't be able to run to Sam's or Costco or Walmart or anywhere else and pick up the things that you forgot to get. So you're going to have to be fairly resourceful in that, and finding alternative ways of finding things. So he says you're going to have to embrace flexibility. Any of us who are so firm in our ways that we won't consider alternatives are probably not going to make it. We're going to have to constantly do situational analysis. We're going to have to constantly do some brainstorming, some critical thinking in order to come up with things. Kind of like Sue Me and I are thinking about, how do we grow plants? How do we keep animals alive for 10 years in a nuclear winter type of an environment? Supply chain distribution. He gives a couple of examples here, but there's one that I saw a while back, and it was when the Canadian truckers were doing their strike, and it says, how long can a nation survive? And it was one of those info something type of a things. And it said, what happens if the trucker strike continues for 7 days? And it showed all of the effects that we would have. No gasoline, no food, nothing happens. Okay. We are on a just-in-time inventory system throughout most of the United States. And nobody is paying for warehouse room. So if you take a look at things like Walmart and Target, most of the big box stores, they have stuff when they comes to the dock, it's put out on the shelves that night. They don't want to pay for any storage or warehouse space. So they have a 3-day supply. Once that 3-day supply is deterred or slowed, we have major problems. Hello, Gil. Welcome. I'm cleaning up my Monday so I can get back to see you on Monday nights. For everybody, Camp Patton Family Compound is Gil, and he has a fantastic live at 7 p.m. on Monday nights, and that's with Gray Man Prepping. So he has 2 different channels. Thank you, Scott, for putting that link up there. I greatly appreciate that. So Camp Family Patton Compound link is there. Scott just put that up. Let me highlight that. But also take a look for Gray Man Prepping. That's another one of his channels. So unforeseen population surge. So what we're talking about there is basically migration. So as soon as one area dries up and they don't have the availability of food, clothing, water, sanitation, they move. And so you're going to see this, they call it the golden horde. But it's going to be a mass migration of people out of the urban areas into the suburban and then into the rural areas. I don't think there's going to be that many people left to have a major rural effect. But most of the rural homesteads and farms and ranchers and everybody else are rather isolated. So they don't have their next door neighbor is the next township over for the rest of us. Typically it's going to be anywhere from a quarter of a mile to a half a mile between neighbors. So it's going to be easy pickings once you do get out into the rural area. He gives us a lot of advice about how to basically ration things. I would say ration to the extent that you want to have food left over. So if you're used to 3 meals a day, go to 2 meals a day. Try to keep your calories about the same. I forget who I was talking with, but I was saying that if I had it to do all over again, my spreadsheet for my Excel spreadsheet for my um, food stockpile is based off of, quote, servings, okay, which we all know is never very accurate. I would probably be better off if I had done that with servings and calories. So one of the things you might want to do is make sure you're planning all of your meal planning around calories more so than the specified servings on the can. That's the same thing with when I do my spreadsheet for coffee. If you take a look at the coffee, whether it be instant or a bag of can of roasted or a bag of beans, it gives you how many servings are 6-ounce cups. Well, this is a 12-ounce cup. So I just have to divide the number of servings in that can by 2, and then that gives me how many servings in my equation are actually in that can or whatever. Thank you once again, great Scott. I appreciate that. Oh, Patty, make me jealous. Oh gosh, all you people who have green thumbs, I tell you what, I am super jealous. The only thing I can grow effectively are warts, and I don't plant those. Crafting resilience to endure and thrive over the long haul. That's going to primarily involve a lot of mental and social, psychological behavior. So I do want to show you a couple things that I just want to share with you. Let me see here. Share screen. And we're going to do stress busters. There we go. So this is something I found. This is from ACEs Aware, and ACEs stands for Adult Children Adverse Children Experiences. So basically, a child who has had a traumatic experience as a child is going to end up having traumatic experiences and inflict traumatic experiences as an adult. So what it talks about, what are some of the things that we need to be concerned about? Make sure you're getting quality sleep. So, on a regular basis, and along with that, have supportive relationships over here. So make sure you have friends, loved ones, family, somebody with whom you can share your ups and downs and who's going to be a little bit concerned about you. Take care of your own mental health, and we'll talk about that here with the next one I want to show you. Experience nature to the maximum amount possible. Now, in a post-apocalyptic world, that may mean just getting outside and trying to see the sunlight, if it's possible. But having that exposure to sunlight. One of the things we experienced in Germany during the winter was a high number of people who are being totally stressed out, having anxiety attacks, because in the winter in Germany, you're only getting 4 hours of sunlight a day. So you drove to work when it was dark, you came home when it was dark. So what we encouraged people to do was go outside and for at least 15 minutes in the first part of the day of their shift, 15 minutes in the after part, and for a half hour for lunch, walk over to the mess hall to get your food. And you needed to be exposed to the sun. We figured for at least 1 hour out of the 4 to 6 that it was up. Now, it's quite the opposite in the summer. In the summer, we only had about 4 hours of darkness. So everybody had blackout curtains on their windows. But, experience nature. That's going to be another one of those stress busters for you. Mindfulness practices and then physical activity. With physical activity, so people like me who are older and a little bit more or less agile, let's call it, I am mobility impaired. So I have an exercise chair, and then I have silver sneakers that Helen and I do on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We have a stability class we do on Tuesdays. I bought a exercise chair, and then we have some chair exercises that we do here at home. So those are ways that I'm augmenting my physical care so that I will be a little bit more physically capable in a post-apocalyptic world. Then, of course, the last one is going to be make sure you have a balanced nutrition. I find, and that's where gardening is going to come in extremely important. I find that having fresh vegetables is going to be critical in a post-apocalyptic world. So salads, having greens. So I order spinach, and occasionally they'll have kale with my Thrive Life orders. I like to order. You'll see every once in a while on my Prepper Pantry hauls. I get two different things. I either get red cabbage, rotkohl, or sour, or and Aunt Nellie's is the brand we like most of that. Then I also get sauerkraut, and you can do the same thing with kimchi. But you want to have some of those vegetables. Be a good idea to learn how to grow those right now. So I'm going to encourage you to learn how to grow those. Yes, absolutely, Gil. Thank you for bringing that up. D3 and K2 are extremely critical. And so if you can't get those naturally, you want to be able to supplement those. So make sure you also are up on your supplements. He recommends a daily walk, gardening, home maintenance, the spirit of lifelong preparedness. Get a library, and have everything that you can in that library. And I'm going to say this is going to be one part of that. Make sure you have this book. Get ebooks and audiobooks. I'm not so sure whether we'll have electricity or not, but if we do have access to the sun and you have a solar system, then that will provide light so that you can. That will provide electricity so you can do the ebooks and audiobooks. Learn more homeopathic medicine. I wholeheartedly agree with that, and that takes on several different flavors. That takes on the natural remedies as far as plants and herbs. It brings on talks about tinctures and what's it called? Essential oils that can take on chiropractor. That can be acupuncture. A lot of different things that are out there. Let me tell you, I broke my ankle in Korea in 1988. And the general, who was the commanding general of the Korean CIA, told me that he was going to send me to his personal physician. Well, this was right when AIDS was a big concern. And I went to his personal physician in Chunghoan, and he used acupuncture on my ankle. And the pain and the swelling were gone within 10 to 15 minutes. But he told me, your ankle's broken. You need to go see a Western doctor to have it fixed. But I tell you what, he convinced me that acupuncture is a very valid method of homeopathic healthcare, and that convinced me. I mean, the pain and the swelling were gone, and so I went to Saigon to Yongsan. I went to Yongsan, and they put a cast on it, and I was very happy. But it's great. Learn different types of homeopathic medicine. You need to have a couple people who know a couple methods in your group in order to be holistically prepared. He talks about adaptability. He talks about your path to resilience. So he says, part of it is why did you choose to take this discussion? Why did you take this book? Now, one of the things I do like about everything that Carlos Mack does, and if you notice, I have all of my things I print out to support my classes. I keep in the back of the book, but he has a lot. Probably he has a QR code you can scan, and he's probably got, let me see, 2, 3, 5. He's got 5 full pages of URLs that you can go to for additional information on this subject. So while we're talking about mental health, I want to share one more to you. And this one, you need to bookmark it. And if you get a chance to get a class, take a class in it, okay? This is going to be about mental health first aid. So when I was working at the homeless shelter, this was a requirement that we had to have this training to work with the homeless. And so I just recommend that you take a look at getting trained in mental health first aid. There are certain ways that you're going to be able to deal with people who are under abnormal stress and be able to bring them down instead of escalating the situation. So, to the maximum extent possible, you want to be able to diffuse the situation and not escalate it. And that's going to be how you work your mental health first aid. So if you would, I'll put this link in the show notes as well. Make sure you get trained in that. I think that will do you a lot of good. Okay, so we have concluded this book. And like I said, this is a phenomenal book, Carlos Mack. I have another one of his books here that I'll be supplementing tomorrow night's discussion with another book. And this is another Carlos Mack book. He writes some good stuff. I think it's all self-published because they're fairly small but small and to the point, and they're all black and white. But I think, pretty much he is a great author that I would recommend getting as much of his stuff inside your system as possible. Let me get up here and catch up with the comments, and then we can see if we can do a little bit of open discussion. So I'm just reading along here. Theoxorus says that he has a tendency to agree. Most who know me attribute my Lee tendencies to growing up as a redhead. Well, I wasn't a redhead, but I'm still, of that genre. I hadn't thought about that, little known prepper, but you're absolutely correct. It's kind of like focusing light from a solar oven. Yeah, great idea. Thank you. Let me write that down. That's an eraser. I have to keep full-size erasers. That's how much I make mistakes. So reflectors for light. Reflectors for solar. There we go. Great. Thank you. I'll add that to my list of things here. So Utah Mike says that his garden is more for mental health. Vegetables are just a nice byproduct. Yes, and that's, I think he mentions that for that very reason. Other book, he mentions that for that very reason. I think it accomplishes two things. Number one, it accomplishes a little bit of relaxation, and it also accomplishes providing food. By the way, I had an interesting discussion with a rabbi. And so we were talking about the Sabbath, and the prohibition is that we should not work on the Sabbath. And so the Sabbath is a day of rest and relaxation. Well, what if your relaxation is gardening? Okay. Is that considered work, or is that considered rest and relaxation? So I guess it's all, there's a joke, and it's, talking to a priest, and it says, "Father, is it okay if I eat while I pray?" And he says, "Absolutely not." He said, "Okay." And then, so the priest walked by and saw him in the cafeteria and saw him praying while he was eating. He says, "I thought I told you that you shouldn't pray while you eat." And he says, "You shouldn't eat while you pray." He says, "Well, I'm not eating while I'm praying while I'm eating." So, those kinds of things. And same thing with gardening. It can be something very productive and very, very soothing. Mine's very frustrating simply because I haven't been able to do it. I think it might be because of my 12 to 14 hours of exposure to direct sunlight in the backyard. I'm probably going to have to get some shade nets at one point or another. I sure hope they find out what this cough is. I am beginning to become concerned that it might be, what are they calling it? SVD, something, no. A, PVS, there it is. But it's post-vaccination syndrome from a certain vaccination. But anyhow, I have a lot of the symptoms that they're talking about for that. So if this doesn't work out with this gastro, and then that's going to be my next step, is to check into this PVS, post-vaccination syndrome. I consider a several hundred miles radius around me a dying ground for the horde because there is nothing to sustain the unprepared, not even many gas stations. I constantly tell people, Ficgtion, everything has advantages and disadvantages. And I just, what did I do with it? On a military Facebook page that I belong to, I printed this out. And I think it points out that every advantage can also be a disadvantage. It says, if you're stupid, but it works, it's not stupid. Don't look conspicuous. It always draws fire. That's why aircraft carriers are called bomb magnets. When in doubt, empty your magazine. Never share a foxhole with anyone who is braver than you are. Never forget that your weapon was made by the lowest bidder. If your attack is going really well, it's probably an ambush. No plan survives the first contact intact. All 5-second grenade fuses will burn down in about 3 seconds. I can testify to that. Try to look unimportant because the bad guys may be low on ammunition. So yeah, we take off our rank. The newer uniforms have rank only in one place, and that's here in the middle of the chest. And of course, it's camouflage now. Whereas first portion of my career, we wore the shiny bars, and that made us a target like you would not believe. If you're forward of your position, the artillery will always fall short. The enemy diversion you are ignoring is really the main attack. The important things are always simple. The simple things are always hard. The easy way is always mined. If you're short of everything except enemy, you're in combat. When you have when you have secured an area, don't forget to tell the enemy. Incoming fire always has the right of way. Friendly fire isn't. If the enemy is in range, so are you. No combat-ready unit has ever passed an inspection. Beer math is 2 beers times 37 men equals 49 cases. Body count math is 2 gorillas plus 1 portable plus 2 pigs equals 37 KIA. Things that must be together to work usually won't be shipped together. Radios will fail as soon as you need fire support. Anything you do can get you shot, including doing nothing. Tracers work both ways so they can see where they came from. The only thing more accurate than incoming enemy fire is incoming friendly fire. Make it tough for the enemy to get in and you can't get out, which is the one I wanted to get to, which is what Ficgtion is talking about here. If you make it tough for the enemy to get in, you're also making it tough for you to get out. So if you put those bars on your windows, to secure your home, and your home's on fire, it's going to make sure you have a way of easily detaching those so you can get out, or else you've just basically negated your exit capabilities. If you take more than your fair share of objectives, you will have more than your fair share of objectives to take. And that's the same thing in life. If you do your job well, you get more work. If you do your job poorly, you get less work. So that's another one of those Murphy's laws. When both sides are convinced that they are about to lose, they're both right. Professional soldiers are predictable, but the world is full of amateurs. And Murphy was a grunt. And grunt is how we refer to the infantry. Okay. Let me see. Hello, Holly. Welcome. Good to see you. So I see that Oregon is trying to become part of Idaho here. They've got it on their referendum that's coming up here, Gil. So you may double your size. Yes, I agree. Gangs will travel. And I think people will get together and form gangs and then use that to their advantage to try to take things. Now, that's the advantage. There is In groups, there is strength, but also in groups, there's a weakness, and that is that they're very difficult to feed and to keep supplied and to keep water. There are also sanitary problems when you have a larger group of people. So there's advantages as far as offense and defense. There's disadvantages as far as logistics. Sue says, I was reading an article the other day, and it was considered normal levels of B12 are at the low end of normal, too low when you get older. I take a B12 sublingual every morning. Shenanigans, hello, welcome, good to see you. That might be it. This is a post-vaccination syndrome, PVS, PTS, PVS, post-vaccination syndrome. I know about K2. I don't know about the Mark 7. Let me see. Thank you, Scott. Okay. For those of you who don't know, Sue's actually across the border in Canada. Higgy Homestead, good evening. Welcome. Glad to see you joining us. I'm using my mouse, so be prepared. We may cut us off. All right, so there we are. So let's kind of review where we are and where we're going and the fun that we will be having. So we just finished up with this fantastic book, only 9 chapters, but please get a copy, add it to your library. I think there's a lot of great, I can remove this page marker now. Leave all the stuff that I printed to support it. So I printed, and I probably wanted to talk about this a little bit more than we did last week. The 8 Pillars of Wellness. This is a different source, and it talks about physical, social, emotional. They're pretty much the same thing as what we did with the other pillars. Occupational was not in the other group. Financial, spiritual, intellectual, and environmental. This is kind of for every day, and the other one I gave you was for after the event. So lots of highlights. I got a couple pages tab. So great book, goes in the library. Next week we're going to do this one, Grid Down Situation. Another great book. Let me read you the chapters on this one so you can already got a couple pages highlighted and a couple pages tabbed. Chapter 1, When the Grid Goes Down. Chapter 2 is The Power Really Out. Chapter 3, A Closer Look at Off-Grid Power. Chapter 4, Longer-Term Solutions. 5, Longer-Term Solutions, Lighting. The other one was heating and cooling. 6, Longer-Term Solutions, Water Filtration and Storage. 7, Food and Cooking. 8, Medical Care. 9, Sanitation and Hygiene. 10, Laundry and Dishwashing. 11, Communications. 12, Security. 13, In the Event of Economic Collapse. Now, everybody on YouTube and Facebook that I watch is predicting economic collapse is imminent. So just be aware of that. Things are not looking too good in the financial sectors, and so they're expecting that to happen. So we will probably next week do just one of those chapters. Let me see. There's a total of 12, 13 chapters. So if we do one chapter a week, then that'll take us March, April, May through May. So we will probably do what it means for you, the first 2 chapters, what it means for you, and immediate short-term solutions for when the grid goes out. So the first 2 chapters of this next week, and we'll see how that goes. Tomorrow night, we're working on this one. And look at all the stuff I have highlighted I want to discuss with you. So what I'm saying is this a treatise as far as scientific work? Yes. Is it hyperbole? Yes. It's a work of fiction. It uses a lot of very good scientific data, but it's put in a hyperbolic situation. That's why it's called a scenario. But anyhow, there's a lot of good information in here, but there's also a lot of stuff that'll scare you that may or may not necessarily be true. So that's what we'll be talking about with all these tabs. And then I've got supporting stuff from Carlos's book. I've got 4 pages tabbed there. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I got 7 more tabs on the computer that I'll be showing you tomorrow night that will support that this is a little bit of hyperbole and just fear-mongering. Okay, so let's get up here and see where we are with all of your comments. Golly, a lot of them. Okay. Shenanigans, I hope so too. My problem is I keep getting tired of telling people it's not contagious when I cough. People look at me like I should be wearing a mask or something. And so when I cough, I just tell them it's not contagious. We went on the senior trip last week, and we went to one of my favorite barbecue joints, Cooper's in Llano, Texas. And I had a pork chop, and their barbecue, oh gosh, unbelievable. I added their sticker here too. Yeah. So, but anyhow, on a bus with 23 other seniors, and every time I coughed, I got this terrible look like I was killing everybody. So I had to tell them, no, it's not contagious. This is something we just don't know what it is, but it's not contagious. Thank you, Scott. Yes, please press the like if you haven't, and subscribe if you haven't. Higgy Homestead. XNYCOG Prepper, hello, welcome, good to see you. Let me see. Tammy was exposed to mold once, and it gave bad cough. Mold can be bad news. It was at my aunt's condo. The builder took a shortcut to pocket dollars from her, sadly. Yes, so what I did was my very first move was I went to my pulmonologist. My pulmonologist sent me to an ENT, and that's who had identified basically the exposure to mold. The ENT said, I'm sorry, from my pulmonologist, I went, which is the lung specialist. From my pulmonologist, I went to my allergist. That's what it was. And I'm taking allergy shots as a result of it, but mold was not part of it. From the allergist, I went to the ENT. And then I also went to the cardiologist. So I've seen 4 specialists in the last year. And so the last one was actually the ENT, ear, nose, and throat specialist. And so he wants me to wash my nose twice a day, and that'll probably stop the cough. He says, but it's $176 for the prescription he wants me to add to the nasal wash. And that's for a 1-month prescription. And it might work. And I said, no, I'm not going to spend $176 for something that might work. So I came home, and in my inbox, there was an 8-year follow-up to a surgery I had done, a gastrointestinal surgery I had done January 8 years ago. And it says, do you have these symptoms? And I said, oh, yeah. So I sent him an email right off the bat. Got in and saw him. Let me see. I responded to the email on a Tuesday, I think it was. Saw him on Friday. They scheduled me for this procedure within 2 weeks. And so I had the procedure Monday, and they've got this thing inside of me that's measuring all this stuff. And so we should know the results of that probably later on this week. We do know that part of it's going to incur another surgery. So that's just part of the solution, but we're not sure. That was incidental or coincidental to the exploratory stuff he did. and not exactly what we were looking. It's not what we were looking for, but we found something else. So we'll probably get both corrected at the same time. Let me see here. Scott, you're doing a yeoman's job as far as getting those links up there. I really greatly appreciate it. If Kaylin's here, you can put hers up as well. I do have COPD, but that's not what it is. My lungs are terrible. I have COPD. I have a trace of emphysema. I have asthma. And then I lost a portion of my lungs when I worked at the homeless shelter. I was the HR director for one of the largest homeless shelters in the U.S. And I was in the elevator with a homeless person and had community-acquired MRSA pneumonia. And so I spent a little bit of time in ICU and lost a portion of my lungs because of that. But no, this cough is not caused by or it may be exacerbated by, but it's not caused by COPD. Let me see. Great idea. Great idea. That's kind of what he's talking about. It's a little bit of postnasal drip, and it could be, but I asked him for a less expensive form of the nasal thing, and he did it. And the one that he came across now is actually covered pretty much by my insurance, and I think I pay $8 or $12 a month. But when you get to be my age, you've got so many $8 or $12 a month prescriptions that you could go bankrupt just with that. Okay. So Little Lone Prepper is learning how to renew necessities in a long-term situation is key. Pioneers did it with just the items in a covered wagon. Yes, and they did it with non-perishables too. So they just had basically flour, cornmeal, sugar, salt, coffee, lard or tallow, one or the other. And, so yeah, they did beans and legumes, rice. So they had a lot of stuff, and we can do it. A lot of times people say that we can't do certain things, and they're talking about food. What do they call it? When you get bored of eating the same thing all the time. Well, let me tell you, there are people in Asia, there are people in Africa, there are people in the Middle East who eat the same food 2-3 meals a day, 365 days a year. And, they don't know the meaning of the word that we talk about with, what is it, food boredom or I forget what the actual term that we call it is, but yeah, it's crazy. Utah Mike, yes, as a matter of fact, you recommended that a couple of weeks ago, and I don't know if you saw it or not, but in my last, as a result of you putting that in the chat, I ordered some dandelion tea. And so that was in my last haul, I believe. I had that where I ordered the dandelion tea. And Little Lone Prepper's got us supported there too. Kaylin Prepper's got her link up. If you grow it, yeah. Isn't that the truth? If not something else, fertilize it, let's call it. Doctor says that I'm starting to notice a lot of services are flexible in their pricing. If you tell them you're on a limited budget, they may offer a lower price level of service. Yes, absolutely. I just did that recently. I forget where it was. Oh, well. But I did. I said, no, I can't pay that. And so they lowered the price. Food fatigue. There you go. Thank you. I should remember fatigues. I used to wear them. Holly Ivans is here. Well, that's me. So anyhow, and I was having this conversation with somebody last night. So one of the things about the MRSA acquired, the community acquired MRSA pneumonia, is on a ventilator in ICU, you quit smoking. So it used to be, we're talking ancient history now, before I quit smoking, I wore 34-inch in waist and 34-inch inseam. So it added up to 68. I still add up to 68, but it's 38-30. So I've gotten, a little bit more rotund and a little bit shorter. But it still adds up to 68. However, when I went into the hospital smoking, I weighed 155, and now I weigh right at 200. So, yes, quitting smoking does put pounds on you, which is the reason why we have the exercise chair, and I'm trying to lose some weight. I'm really trying to work on my core muscles right now because I think that's going to reduce my waistline. I bought 38-inch trousers when I had the store so I could fit my thing inside my pants, inside my belt line. And now I can't fit my thing inside my pants. So I need to get down to where I can fit that inside underneath my shirt. And that's going to be very, very critical. Love you, Factress. Love you. We have two out in the fridge outdoors. I like the Mexican beers, the top malts. I don't know. Do I have Dos Equis or do I have Tecate out there right now? One of the two. And then Helen drinks light beers. And I think we both bought a 6-pack maybe back in the summer. And we probably have 1 or 2 beers each left out there. So you can tell we drink a lot of it. We bought 3 bottles of eggnog for Christmas, and there's still a half bottle in this fridge and a full bottle out in the garage. So we really have a hard time with our liquor, I tell you. Yeah. Have to wear it up here, right? Okay. Gosh, okay. So I can't think of anything else. A lot of stuff in the news. Make sure you're paying attention. I want to throw in one political thing, and it's not supporting anybody. It's not against anybody. It's just something that is very, very near and dear to my heart. And that is at the very first cabinet meeting of the new cabinet today, they started off with a prayer. And I think it was John Adams who said that our Constitution was written for a moral and religious person, and that it would not do for an irreligious country or for an immoral country. And so, I think that's extremely truthful. Remember, John Adams was our 3rd president, and he knows and what the Constitution was written for and how it is to be interpreted. So the fact that they started off that cabinet meeting today with a prayer, I think is indicative of the direction we're taking the country. And if that is the case, then I really, really like that. Gosh, anybody have any questions or comments or anything? Because we pretty much used up the book, and we're down to the last of it here. I guess let me kind of prepare you for tomorrow night. There are still those out there who think that a nuclear war is the end of the earth. I am not convinced of that. I think there will be some challenges. I see people saying, I want to be at ground zero. I don't. I'm happy where I am. I think that I will be outside of any fallout patterns. And am I still on the same time frame? Tomorrow night at 8:00, yes, is 8. For SHTF. I think that SHTF is going to be in 2025. What I don't know is what's going to cause it. We can see economic collapse. The Bank of England is out of gold. There's a possibility, the president has ordered an audit of Fort Knox. The last time it was audited was 1952. There's been a lot of shaky stuff going on. So is it still there? If the gold is not there, it's going to really cause some major problems. Canada sold all of its gold. Now, but even though Canada has no gold, Canada is like the number 2 holder of silver in the world. There are more Canadian maple leaf 1 ounce silver dollars, let's call them, silver coins produced than any other silver item in the world. I mean, the American silver eagle is like number 8, but Canadian maple leaf is number 1. So they have a lot of silver. I would believe that they probably have number 1 or number 2 reserves underground in Canada, but they don't have any gold in their coffers. Like I said, Britain just went bad. Believe it or not, there's more gold in New York City than there is in Fort Knox, because there's the Federal Reserve in New York City is where most of the country stored their gold during World War II. And so it's full of foreign countries' gold. And so we're holding it. So we could hold it ransom, I guess, but that's kind of something else. So the vast majority of the world, other than China and Russia's, gold reserves are in New York City. But financial collapse. Of course, we've got, Korea and Iran just hate us. They would do anything to get rid of us, to include. And that's one thing I really like about Ross and what's his name? Kirksmith? I forget his name. The Blue Black Dawn, Blue Dawn. I forget the name of the book. It's the book that the Homestead movie was written after, or was patterned after. He starts off with some Al-Qaeda, ISIS members putting a suitcase nuke on a Filipino fishing barge, and then having that sailing ship, and having that sailing ship flow into Kirkham. Thank you, Ficgtion. Kirkham and Ross. So Kirkham's the special forces guy. He owns Black Rifle Coffee. But anyhow, they have a Filipino terror. Well, these guys don't know what's going on. Yeah, they do. In his first book, they do. The second book, they don't. And they go into Los Angeles Harbor with a suitcase nuke. And so that's what starts basically the war. That is very plausible. I can see Al-Qaeda, ISIS, somebody like that doing that, Iranian Republican Guards doing something like that. I can see North Korea, which is, that's what starts everything off in this book. I think that's very realistic that North Korea wants us gone. Their country had, we moved north and south and just wiped out everything in that country 3 times before we settled at the 38th parallel. So I mean, there's so many things that we could go on as far as world war threats, pandemics. We've got terrorists galore. If you get a chance, a friend of mine just returned this to me. Come on, it's right there. I thought. Nope, it's not right there. I guess I put it up. I loaned a friend of mine Al-Qaeda 2.0, and read that. I mean, read that book. That is going to really scare you, because in that book, they assess that there's 1,000 ISIS, ISIL, Al-Qaeda terrorist cells active in the United States. Also point out that there have been somewhere around, and this is guesstimates, between 30 and 80,000 Chinese of military age, unaccompanied, well-dressed, clean, dropped off by bus at the southern border, who have come across in the last 4 years. And that's the equivalent to 6 divisions of Chinese infantry already inside the United States. I used to say that Red Dawn was physically impossible, that there was no way they could get the forces across the oceans to attack the United States. They don't have to. They're here. So we've got 1,000 terrorist groups, terrorist cells in the country. We've got anywhere between 30 and 80,000 Chinese infantry in the country. I mean, so those exist. Then of course, you got all the cartels, the other uh, gangs that want to do things. Funny, I haven't heard that much about the Crips and the Bloods recently. All these other gangs have kind of taken over. Um, so, those are the threats that I see. I see economic failure in the United States is highly likely. A couple of the economists that I watch are saying that a stock market crash is imminent within the next 30 days. So, that's something that, it could scare you, but that's something you need to pay attention to as well. The what's going on in Europe and the possibility of that expanding. So NATO is talking about sending in NATO peacekeeping troops. Well, guess what? Why did Putin go in there in the first place? Because Ukraine was talking about becoming NATO and having NATO troops in their country. So if we're going to send in NATO peacekeeping troops, do you think Putin's going to allow that? I don't think so. He wants NATO as far away from his borders as possible. That's not going to do us any good. There's an awful lot of things that could go wrong over the course of the next year. So I just say, prepare for everything. Make sure you have a little bit of everything. Get some precious metals for the financial collapse. Pay off your bills. Get some cash. Get a Geiger counter in case something else goes wrong. Make sure you have freedom fighters and freedom fighter seeds in case there's other things. I have heard, I don't know the veracity of it, I have heard. So please file this under BS rumor, okay? But I have heard that there are going to be riots in every capital city on the 4th of March in opposition to the current administration. So, be aware of those as well. We've got our own problems internal to our country where we're fighting each other too much as well. So those are the threats as I see them. There are several more, but it's kind of where we are. I think that will be a good skill. Beer, wine, whiskey, any of those that you can make might be a good skill to have in a post-apocalyptic world. Yeah, they do have good gold mines. So, Black Autumn, thank you, Theoxerus. Yeah, both Putin and what's his name? Want to send us precious metals. I would invest right now in copper. Copper is really in short supply. Canada owns the most U.S. land by another country. I recently read, and they've bought the Pacific Railway from Canada to Mexico, so they want to work with us. I'm sure they need us, and we need them. I think that's a symbiotic relationship. I think that we and Canada need to be as close as possible. I think that all three of us need to be as close as possible: Canada, United States, and Mexico. I correct people when they say they're from America, because to me, America is North America. That's Canada, United States, and Mexico. So I believe all three of those are Americans. So when you say the Gulf of America, I can see where that comes from, because it's on the north, it has North America, to the west, it has Central America, and to the south, it has South America. So it makes sense to me that it would be called Gulf of America. Although Gulf of Mexico is the ancient Aztec word. So, whichever one you want. Half of one, 6 dozen, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. There we go. Yes, so we're seeing an increase in measles. We're also seeing an increase in tuberculosis. Both of those brought from across the border. And the measles are being exacerbated by the fact that the anti-vaxxers are applying the rules that they had here just 5 years ago to other proven vaccines that have basically eradicated diseases. And now areas that were not vaccinated are coming into our country and they're exposing our youth, especially, to diseases against which they have not been vaccinated, and there is no protection. So, the proven vaccinations, please get them. They work. There's 37, I believe, currently in Texas right now. Just my opinion, and remember, I was a Russian intelligence analyst. I think the Russians, especially now that once they decommunized, although we could argue whether Putin is communist or not. I think they really wanted to have a closer relationship with us. They asked to join NATO, and Obama said no. And when Obama told Putin no, that's what really got us going like this. So that started the Cold War all over again. I've seen that, Scott. I've also seen that there have been they've been burning out document shredders in the FBI, and where else was it? Was it the Department of State? I think it was the FBI and Department of State before the appointees came in. They didn't want any documentation supporting some of the illegal activities that have been going on. Whistleblowers are emerging like you would not believe. Where's numbers? It's Leviticus. There's numbers. Okay, so let's get a couple more down here, and then we'll call this a night. So Shenanigans heard the same thing. She heard. Although, if you'll remember, I think it was last Friday or last Thursday, the new AG, is it Pam Bondi from Florida, said that they were on her desk. So I don't know. We shall see. We shall see. Yes, I would say make sure it's ready there. Absolutely. Yes, and so now we have tuberculosis coming along with those. Absolutely. You are 100% correct, Patty. And let me see here. Another thing you can do is just stay inside and stay away from likely areas where there might be consternation. For those of you who live in more rural areas, I am on the northern suburbs of Austin. If anything happens, it's going to be down at the capital area or the UT area, which are not that far apart, just maybe a mile. So I think that whole area, I would stay away from that area totally. Universities and state capitals, just stay away from them. And then I'm going to stay up here and just away from it, stay indoors, and just hope that everything goes well. Okay, so the book of Numbers, chapter 6, verses 24, 25, 26. I found out today that number 6 and Deuteronomy 6 are the two biggest pieces. So I'll do Deuteronomy. Let me do Deuteronomy 6. This is called the Shema. I think I have it highlighted here. Yeah, I do. So it's called the greatest commandment, the Shema. And it says, so Shema is hear in Hebrew. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God and the Lord alone. Therefore you shall love the Lord your God with your whole heart, with your whole being, and with your whole strength. So this is so important that when you see the really Orthodox Jews and they have those little things on their tzitzits on their head, that's the Shema. That prayer is inside that. They also have it on their wrist. It's on every doorpost and on every gate to every house. So that's the prayer that you'll see in those boxes. But for us tonight, we're going to do the Levitical, L-A-V, Levi, L-E-V, Levitical, Levi, Levitical priest blessing. And that is, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be precious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and give you peace. Don't forget to come back tomorrow night. We're going to have fun with this one. Okay. Take care, everybody. Stay safe. Love you. Bye-bye.